Hi. Um,
Hello.
so this is our dual kind of virtual community study. I will be today talking about baseball Twitter, especially Mets Twitter, kind of you know, my backyard, essentially. And Rose, you're talking about.
Harry Potter, particularly the argument between book versus movie details, and as well, just other things in that community on Instagram.
So I guess we can start off with like a little bit of background into our involvement or like our relationship with these communities, because obviously part of the requirements of the assignment is that we are participating in this in these communities. So um my background with uh baseball and then baseball Twitter is I was raised and a Mets fan. My first like baby clothes were probably Mets clothes. I know my brother's first
Hmm.
baby clothes were Mets clothes because I gave them to him. Um, that was as a 5-year old, I picked those out for him. Um, so it's always been kind of a very important part of my life. As I grew up, in high school and college, I kind of stayed away from social media for the most part. I only really got a Snapchat because my friends forced me to because they wouldn't text me um, anymore. And I got on Twitter because I liked, following sports communities and stuff like that. And that's how I kind of got involved in sports Twitter. My kind of entry point was that you would get sports news quicker on Twitter than you would getting like ESPN notifications because the reporters would always tweet the
Mhm.
updates before ESPN would post a story about them or anything because they would just tweet them as they got them. So that's how I kind of got. I followed Jeff Passan, ESPN's head baseball reporter, on Twitter. To have notifications for him, so I'm always kind of in the loop. That's still to this day. It's been like 5 or 6 years of that. Um,
Well,
and that's kind of my entry point into the baseball Twitter world. Um,
well,
so why don't you tell us
I,
about your
I
involvement in Harry Potter
uh,
TikTok?
so Harry Potter, I actually didn't get into. I watched the movies as a kid, because one of my best friends was obsessed with the movies, like crazy obsessed. So she would make
Hmm.
me watch them, and I always liked them, but I never like it was never my thing. And then I got to college and I was going through a real rough time and I found one of the books at a thrift store. I think it was the first one actually.
Hmm.
And I just started reading it and after that I was hooked. I read the entire series in like, I don't know, like a month. Like I was just
Wow.
flying through these books and they're like
Yeah,
chunky,
I was gonna
chunky
say
books.
that's
They're huge books.
intense.
Yeah, I came home for winter break my freshman year and I think I read the first two or first three or something like during that whole break. Like I was just going through it. Um, I reread all of them once a year at least.
Oh my God.
I rewatch all of the movies at least once a year. It's like a huge. I'm playing Hogwarts Legacy right now. Like it's a I'm going literally Saturday tomorrow night. I'm going to a Hogwarts pop-up bar with my boyfriend and our friends. Um, it's just a huge part of like my personality now. It's become kind of like an escape, I guess, somewhere I can
Yeah.
go where I feel like a kid again and I can just ignore, life when it becomes too much. So, um, I mean, that's kind of, and I get passionate about some of these things. Like, I know for a fact that certain movies didn't have certain details from the book,
Yeah.
but the screenshots you're going to see are kind of wild. Like, people are way more into this even than I am. So, it's crazy.
And something else I think we can speak on right off the bat for one of these design principles
Mm,
that both of these communities have in common, probably Harry Potter more so than baseball, is legitimization of youth interests, values, and practices. The
yes.
Harry Potter community
Yep.
is, I would imagine, overwhelmingly younger. I don't imagine there's a lot of like I'm sure there are. I don't
You'd be
imagine there's a lot of
surprised.
Gen X Harry Potter
Well,
fans
Gen X
on
probably
TikTok.
not. Yeah, Gen
Right.
X
So I'm talking
probably
like
not.
millennials and
Uh,
Gen Z for the most part, and probably Gen
yeah.
Alpha.
I would say mostly millennials, actually.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it's hard to tell from Instagram and people's profiles. It's, difficult to tell unless you go into everybody's profile, but I think generally speaking, it's more millennial than Gen Z. And I actually
Mhm.
do have a video later that talks about that a little bit. But you're right though about that, the values and practices. It's Definitely, I think more in Harry Potter though, like you said, more than baseball.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely
Yeah.
there in baseball, and that a lot of the people that I interact with, I get into it, but a lot of the people that I end up interacting with on Twitter end up being, some of them are definitely my age, our
Okay.
age, for sure. Especially some of the more like active users that are constantly kind of frequently posting are definitely younger, but there are also probably just as many, maybe a little fewer, but just as many kind of older
Hmm.
fans who have figured out, the cliche of social media is that, oh, old people don't know how to use social media. And some old people do, and they talk about
Yeah.
it. And especially, and something else we'll talk about in the community, and when we're talking kind of about community roles, is that um a significant part of baseball social media is people whose job it is to talk about baseball social media. I mentioned Jeff Passan, who's the head reporter for ESPN, obviously a big figure in the baseball community. If you get to like a regional level, a lot of broadcasters have social media accounts. So the Mets radio announcer Howie Rose is pretty active on social media. I love
Hmm.
Howie, always very insightful. The Mets owner Steve Cohen is pretty active on Twitter, and obviously their role is kind of more. I mean, I guess we can just get into the roles a bit now.
Yeah.
Um, their role is always kind of more of sometimes a mouthpiece for the organizations. That would be like Steve Cohen. Sometimes to have commentary or on the organizations, that would be more like Howie Rose and some of the broadcasters. And some are, just reporting on news like Jeff Passan, who's just kind of like, here's some updates on injuries or contracts or stuff like that. And then there's also obviously fan discourse. And within the fan discourse, there are still people whose job it is to talk about this. That falls under the realm of like podcasters and not quite reporters, but kind of the bridge between reporter and fan is having a podcast where you're kind of taking it to the next level, which also is I'm scrolling through it so I can get the exact phrasing, but kind of like the opportunity part of this community. So I'm curious, like the Harry Potter fan base,
It's a fan base.
nobody's gonna get called in to write books for Harry Potter, I
No.
feel like.
It's a fan base, but you also have to remember, and this came up a little bit during my time, on in this community, like for the project. You have to remember too, the Cursed Child, that was not originally J.K. Rowling. That
It wasn't?
that play, I believe, was somebody else that wrote that or part of it, and then she came in and helped with, like contributed to the rest.
Okay.
But that, I believe, started as a fan, like a fan thing. Somebody
Hmm.
wrote that. Um, but I mean, so like with the roles, like we don't have, it's a fan base. It's not, it's mostly like people running on Instagram. It's mostly people running big Instagram accounts where they
Yeah.
post, like news about it, but it's not a job. That's a hobby that they do because they love the community, but you do have some magazines posting about it. You did ask me about the whole, J.K. Rowling,
Yes.
that whole thing. I don't even have to say
That whole
words. We know,
shitstorm,
yeah, we all know what that is.
Yeah,
I mean, this came up, this post. So it's
I
it's
can't.
one of the yeah, it's one of the actors. I'll read it to you. Transgender women are women and transgender men are men. Every single person has the right to choose who they are and to identify themselves as what's true to themselves. And then it says Harry Potter actor Harry Melling supports trans rights after J.K. Rowling comments. And
Yeah.
then the comments are all over the place. Like one person, I don't know where this is so random. I don't know what they were responding to. It says, "What a facetious comment. Did you really just compare a trans person to Pokemon?"
What?
I don't know. Someone said, "Thank you, Harry," with a bunch of emojis. Then somebody else said, "Every human is for sure human, although there are people who do not identify as human, even though the factual reality is that they are indeed human. Transgender people are people. Obviously, a transgender woman is a woman with male parts, biological sex, etc. Honestly, people have no problem with this usually." Like these comments are so it's a different community than
Yeah.
what I think than yours.
Well,
You know
I
what I
think that
mean?
there's definitely still, don't get me wrong, baseball fans have their share of political. I hesitate to even call this political, but I think it is just at this point.
It is.
as
No,
the
it is.
catch-all. Like these level of
Unfortunately.
political discussions are definitely still there. If you look at, I think the example, I don't have any screenshots of it because most of the screenshots I have prepared are of interactions I've had um online with people, but like the Shohei Ohtani scandal, which had
Mm,
another pretty
yeah.
major development yesterday, which has seemingly kind of cleared him after this federal investigation. Obviously, there's still some question, but like for, I mean, weeks there was, just a whole debate over whether or not, he was innocent or guilty. And if we're talking about kind of looking at like some additional connections to other subjects we talk about, this class debate isn't necessarily bad, especially in an online
No.
forum, and that it
Yeah.
gives you the opportunity
Well,
but
I mean, it's, I think it's also kind of like a shared purpose almost,
for
like
sure.
like with changes in community norms and values, I think people are going to be, quick to debate those things, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but it can, like we all know how it can turn.
Of course.
At its core, it's not a bad thing though.
I mean, and look, people are, and I'm sure this is true for Harry Potter, not outside of posting misleading or
Oh,
completely wrong
I have so many
information. I'm
screenshots like
sure you have
that.
a ton of that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so if we're talking about kind of we talked about a lot of media literacy, like you still need that. You still need to figure out
Yeah.
um there's still going to be fake things or still out there. There's still definitely, you have to be on your toes. What can you speak of? I mean, I feel like the crux of your experience was people debating whether certain facts were true or false.
Yeah. So I have a couple of them. I'll pull them up on my iPad so it's a bigger screen. So I mean the main thing, like the big thing most recently was, if I can find it, the creation of a TV show. Now, some people like this idea, some people don't.
Oh, the HBO
The
Max TV
HBO Max
reboot.
show. Yeah.
I got opinions.
Personally, I don't like the thank
So,
you.
so I want to talk a little bit about I just had it pulled up. The positive kind of interactions we have in the community. So shared values and norms recognized as culturally relevant for a second. This is a little thing that I want to highlight that there's not. The baseball community is a community where people still, debate and compete with one another. But there are moments where across like fan bases there are still, like positivity and levity. So
Okay.
been I've been thinking about a lot recently is there is a Braves fan. If you know anything about baseball, Mets and Braves, not we don't like each other,
Yeah.
but the we're still all kind of unified under this baseball community thing. And as much as we needle each other and make fun of each other, we don't wish ill will on people.
No,
And
of course not.
this one really touched me is that Bean Eater Buzz, a Braves fan account, recently had a child, and the baby is not doing well. Um,
Oh no.
so asking for people to send positive vibes and prayers our way. Poppy's had a rough week. We just want to see our happy baby get home soon. Update: Poppy's heart is fine, but she tested positive for norovirus. It's been going around the ward in the last week. Should feel better in a few days. Good news, but also another thing to slow her progress. And I put my comment in here just because I was wanted to prove that I'm active in this community, but
Fair.
also because I wanted to highlight, the likes, the views, the comments. These are not all from Braves fans. I found this post from a retweet from a Marlins fan who I'll talk about in a little bit. Um,
Oh.
because it's a community thing, that this isn't just a place where people are going to talk about news. People get personally invested in each other's lives. This is a fandom. This is not, I mean, we've seen in other fandoms like people throw death threats at each other because of their
Oh yeah.
views and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really found that in baseball so much because I think it's such a widespread thing and like has been so normalized over a long period of time. There is a basic etiquette that I think gets followed.
Yeah.
So kind of under communities developing, maintaining, and revising norms and expectations that like when someone does something like that, if at all, it's not something that gets really amplified, gets hampered down, or people just kind of talk about you know how things should be done. Also talking about clear pathways and roles for participation, friendly, constructive, and welcoming debate, support for different interests,
Of course, yeah.
um, and changes in community values and norms. A lot of discussion of like, okay, here's what we can do with our fandom. Here's what we do. There's another one that I want to mention. I'm going to share my screen again just so I can
Okay.
pull this up. So one of the Mets players, Francisco Lindor, one of their stars, has really been struggling this season, and his wife posted on social media that because of that, because he's been struggling, she's been receiving messages from like direct messages from people that are very derogatory of her husband and her family. They're not, you know, not originally American. So they get, kind of racism
Okay.
thrown at them, and like the kids are
Yeah.
getting threats thrown at them. So there's been this movement. Most of this has been happening on a road trip. And there's been this movement kind of starting online by people like I remember I mentioned before, athlete logos and some other, more positive Mets fan accounts that I follow up. When they play their game tonight, it's their first home game in a while. Um, People want to give him a standing ovation because he's been struggling at the plate. He's hitting below 100, which is very, very bad if you don't
Yeah.
follow baseball. But
No,
there's
that
no
is very
reason.
bad.
There's no reason. Every player goes through slumps, and there's no reason to throw like your family into it. And apparently, it's been very hard for them. So there's been this fan kind of movement to, give him a standing ovation that's been picked up by, you know, the media, the New York sports media. The owners mentioned it, saying, I think this is a wonderful idea. He's a great person, and we should all be standing behind our players. There's, logos and merchandise. That's my shortstop. There's a movement for positivity. I think that if we're talking about, meaningful, kind of responsive to changes in community value norms and values, um, just slapping down the idea of like booing this guy and getting on him for struggling is there's a measure of positivity. And just to close off this section, just because I'm looking at this box, meaningful contributions made to real communities. The amount of charity efforts that I have seen get started, based around the Mets just on social media, or the idea of like someone mentions a fan mentions I'm struggling, like, and I'm happy to come here for support. And then people rally around this person or give to charitable contributions because of them, or somebody starts a GoFundMe for this person. I see it all the time. So, I think that all of that is just so important and essential to understanding these communities. Have I
You
stalled
actually,
enough for you?
no, you made me, yeah, and I have my iPad here so I can
Cool.
just show stuff here, but you reminded me, you made me think of something. So I didn't know this actually until I saw the Instagram post. So this is that account I was telling you about. So this was one of the actors from Harry Potter.
Hmm.
He had a small role in the book. He had a bigger role, but in the movie, smaller role. So I'll read this.
Hmm.
It says Robert Knox, who played Marcus Belby, very small role in both. I mean, a little bigger in the book, but whatever, was stabbed to death on May 24th, 2008, just days after finishing filming The Half-Blood Prince. So I immediately was like, no, that's not true. Like that can't be true. So I looked it up, and he actually did. He was stabbed to death protecting his younger sibling.
Oh.
Um, but the community kind of came together, and there was a whole documentary that kind of people from the community took place in to raise awareness about this, to get, to bring justice. And it worked. The guy was arrested. He was found guilty on 4 counts of wounding and then given 3 further concurrent life sentences for his death.
Nice.
So they got him justice. But that's what you just made me think of that, because and then there's also the other story, which I didn't see anything about this on Instagram, which is odd
Hmm.
because the documentary just came out, but it was Harry's stunt double. He got
Oh.
So basically what had happened was they were that was his stunt double for the entire series. Like they worked together very closely, obviously, for the
Hmm.
duration of the movies. In the last movie, they're filming, I can't remember which scene it is, but they're doing a major scene where Harry gets thrown back against a wall and hits his head and he's like, he falls over.
Okay.
As soon as the contraption went off, the stunt double went flying into the wall and was paralyzed instantly.
Oh, I did hear about this.
Instantly. And so Daniel Radcliffe has been helping to take care of him and their friends, and they support each other
Hmm.
very openly, very outwardly. They're like friends. But that documentary also is kind of an example, not within the Instagram community, but just like the Harry Potter community in general.
Hmm.
Um, you know, that was a group effort of not only the people like the cast and the crew, but the fans also. A lot of them got
Hmm.
involved. They donated. There were events. Um, so that's also, like you said, there's a chance to be positive. There's that chance to like put things aside and just be good to each other for the sake of being good to each other.
Yeah.
Like recognizing when someone needs help or someone's struggling, like it doesn't happen as much in the Instagram community. That's something
No.
that's in this community. No, it's more of an outside of social media, I think, really, which is a shame, but I didn't really see any of that on Instagram. I saw a lot of heated debates
So
about
go
things.
go into that a little more. How
Yeah.
does the because I think something that I've alluded to it, but it's not like heated debates in baseball community really falls under like friendly competition on our shared practices kind of page of just like, people are gonna bitch and moan and say my guy's better than yours. This is outside of baseball, but like the example I will give is that Jalen Brunson of the New York Knicks is having an MVP caliber season. In my and I would think most people's opinions who really like avidly watch basketball. And he's not really getting the recognition for that from like the league and like on league websites and resources and whatever. And so there's a lot of debate about that of like, is this guy really good? There have been a lot of analysts who've been like, he's too short. He can't be
Oh
good,
my
but like
God.
he's statistically very, very good. Uh, and his, if the team doesn't have him, they don't win at the level they're winning right now. So that's like what a lot of I think baseball in general, generally speaking, sports, kind of looks like is friendly competition. What does the debate look like in the Harry Potter community? Because this
So
is
it
this is
it
where the tea comes in.
yes, lots of it. It greatly depends on what topic you're looking at
Hmm.
because some of it's heated and some of it is literally just a friendly, what I would say fits into this realm of connected learning type discussion because it's joint research. You have
Hmm.
people coming together to educate other people that might be ignorant to a certain fact about the book or the movie or the author who I don't know what the author's name is. We don't mention that. Uh, you know, she who shall not be named.
Oh,
Um,
that's good. That's layered.
yeah, I
Yeah,
saw it on
that's
here
good.
actually in a comment. So here's an example. So this is a screenshot. You can see it's Ron and Hermione. So it says in the book, Prisoner of Azkaban, so that's the third book, Ron stood on his broken leg to tell Sirius twice that he'd have to kill him before he got to Harry to kill him because he's a badass. As we
Yes,
all know, Ron's a badass. In
that's
the
an opinion.
movie, in the movie, they did him so dirty. It says in the movie, Hermione defended Harry while Ron whimpered in the background. That's what happened in the movie, but that's not what happened in the book. So some
That's
of the
fair.
comments, I now have to find the comments on this because my thing got all jumbled. But here we go. So somebody somebody said in the book, Ron stood up to Malfoy a ton of times, was down for fistfights, and was brave except for spiders. He had a ton of brothers and did not grow up weak. Not to mention in this person then responds, not to mention his fight with Draco during the Quidditch match in the first book, because that was totally omitted from the movie, which it was, actually. Um, but then it says the movies also give Hermione Albus Dumbledore's line, fear of the name increases the fear of the thing itself, making her appear wiser than she was. The movie also shows Ron panicking while Hermione was level-headed during the Devil's Snare scene, which where they get wrapped up in it and dragged down.
Hmm.
Um, and the movies made Hermione think of the idea of escaping Gringotts by flying on the dragon when in the book it was Harry's idea. Movie Hermione, it says movie Hermione fits the definition of a Mary Sue, which, and then in parentheses
Oh, Jesus
it says
Christ.
a Mary Sue is a character archetype in fiction, usually a young woman who is often portrayed as inexplicably competent across all domains, gifted with unique talents or powers, liked or respected by most characters, unrealistically free of weaknesses, extremely attractive, innately virtuous, and or generally
Uh,
lacking meaningful character flaws.
how dare a
That
woman be attractive?
that is the paragraph that this person commented on that post.
Fantastic.
And I didn't even, nobody responded to it. That's the
Yeah,
funniest part about it is that this person wrote a book and then nobody responded to it. No one
yeah,
acknowledged it. It got likes, but nobody answered. Um,
yeah.
so then
That's
it gives somebody else goes in to give an example, which this is research from the book. So somebody gives an example where in the movies they gloss over Ron's superior knowledge and understanding of the wizarding world. Like in the book, he
all
says all
right.
he knows all these things about like he tells Harry about all these you know like you know wizarding things that Harry doesn't know. So
Mm-hmm.
but they gloss over that in the movie. But then
Superior knowledge might be a bit much in
that's
my
what this
opinion,
person
but
wrote.
I
Yeah.
get it. I see what
Yeah.
the I look. I get it, but
It goes on to say, for example, the Chamber of Secrets, when Malfoy calls Hermione a mudblood, in the book she has no idea what it means. Ron has to explain it very carefully to Harry and Hermione to explain to them what it means. In the movie, she just seems to know immediately and is the one to explain it to everybody, even though both Ron and Hagrid are there too and also know what it means.
that's a
They
good
off
change though.
right? And then it
That's a
says they
good
often
change.
made Ron look less intelligent or informed than he was in the books, which was annoying. So people are of like this, I feel like a very tame like comment section in comparison to some of the others I've seen. So
Really?
I'm gonna find some of those because some of
Wow.
them,
That's wild.
I mean, people write paragraphs. Like this is another
Yeah,
one.
that's
Like
intense.
let's see, what is this
I mean,
one?
don't get me wrong, in the baseball community, people, including myself, write paragraphs about, analysis and debate and, just a lot of things that probably don't matter but still fall, I feel like, under that like level of, collaborative production where we're all like participating in a debate for a greater kind of purpose or project or like a poll, and then discussing the results of the poll. I don't know if I took a screenshot of it, but I did that last night.
I mean, there's also this example. So it's I looked this up. This actually is true. Hattie Jones was actually supposed to be cast as Hermione in the first movie, but they thought she was 12 at the time. They thought she looked a little too old, so they went with Emma Watson
Hmm.
as she when she was 10. Now, the comments are, first of all, this is the picture. These are obviously not like Hattie Jones is obviously a child. She's obviously an adult in this picture. So like first of all,
Right.
that's a very misleading, picture. But then somebody wrote where was it? It's another paragraph. Yeah, see another little book right there. And someone wrote, all due respect to Hattie, they made the right decision. I cannot imagine anyone else as Hermione. The only issue with Emma is that she's much better looking than the description in the books. But she made the role her own, and she was also my first big crush growing up. I'm still a massive fan. Somebody responded, it looks like almost immediately, 2 hours later. Imagine someone saying this to you. Why would you say this? And I'm like, but then it's so, and then it's the dichotomy of this community because then right above it is a comment chain where somebody writes, she looks younger. If these are comparing 12 to 10, why does the left look younger?
I
And
don't.
then the account that posted it actually responded and said, my apologies. The photos are misleading. The photo of Emma is around the second to third film, and the photo of Hattie was from filming Madeline when she was 9. So that the person who owns that account, which is a different one from the ones before, actually owned up to their mistake with
That's rare.
posting that picture,
That's pretty
which I
good.
thought was a great thing. So I screenshot that because I thought that was I can show that in here. Where is it?
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
Um,
right there. The top little chain. So yeah, I thought that was pretty good because you don't see that normally.
yeah.
A lot of it's
Um,
anger.
to kind of make sure we hit on some additional connections to some other readings.
Yes.
We kind of surface level gotten that a little bit, and then come back around to um, some more positive things. So something I want to mention with some other readings. First, obviously, I think for both of us, big, big article for us. I don't know if this counts as another reading, but it does. It is just something that I picked up on. The online community development through social interaction
Mm.
article from, I guess it was technically, well, for this project, it'll be last week. As of now, it's this week when we're recording this. Um, Kind of about K-pop stan Twitter and this kind of categorization of fandom. Was I know it was big for me. I have to imagine it was useful for both of us. Um, and it's something we talked about a lot in our virtual our virtual synchronous session. So I don't want to harp too much on it, but some of the examples here: met on Stan Twitter and became friends, turning into online interpersonal relationships; joining Stan Twitter because of shared interests, turning into actual shared interests; developing online friendships that lead to talking about personal lives and problems, asking for help to solve, sharing worries and concerns, discussing kind of the development of personal relationships in general, which
Yep.
is an example of that I have really quickly here is
I do
this
have one also.
one, my friend Jas Chisholme. Um, that is a slight pun on the name of a Marlins player, Jazz Chisholm. Um, so we've been friends on Twitter for, I don't know, year and a half now.
Well,
Yeah, long-term Twitter friendship. And I follow this person because it was this rare and kind of part of this what became increasing wave of positive emphasis on positive baseball thoughts that there was at the time. This person felt like there's too much bullshit and negativity. Let's have a space. I want to create a space for something positive. As you can see, it's clearly not the most popular account.
hmm,
It's 4 likes, you know, but neither am I. And it's kind of like this weird thing where we're like, oh, we discovered each other through our teams playing the same division. You know, what's that experience like? And can we develop some division friendships? And so this is someone who, when they post, I comment on, pretty frequently. We both follow each other. Um, Here, this person, I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman, is commenting on, or it could be non-binary. I'm trying not to
assume.
discriminate, assume.
Yeah.
Talking about something little, just even like this person was talking about who the Marlins could trade this season. Marlins are not good. Um, Saying that like, oh, they don't really have any good trade assets. This person saying Luzardo, one of the players with decent value for the team, and me being like, oh, it's kind of tiring with the National League East that it's always kind of like there's a lot of bottom teams and then 2 or 3 really great top teams, and then it gets, you know. So that's just kind of like something where, for me, I'm still sharing my screen. Whoops. Um, for me, the this kind of stood out for me in connection to the Malik and Hadir article. And also, I want to come back around to the end. We talk about some more positive stuff. Is the fandom rules section, which we've touched on a
Mm,
little bit. Um,
yes.
but we can come back to that in a little bit. Is there a There's another article that I was thinking of that I alluded to one earlier, but there was another one. Is there one that you have in mind that you want to discuss quick?
No, the one you just brought up was a
The one
big one for
that
me. That was the one I was gonna say because specifically because of the asking for help, and sharing worries and concerns portion of that with the online, interpersonal relationships. I mean personally, my my best friends and I send Harry Potter memes and Harry Potter stuff all the time. We have debates about it. So even outside of the online community, we're still sending each other Harry Potter
Mhm.
stuff on Instagram. Like this is our group chat. We literally just had sent in a Harry Potter thing to each other. So it's like what we talked about with the virtual communities thing Wednesday. Our synchronous meeting was talking about, the having those relationships online and then transferring to in person or in person going to online.
Mhm.
And you know, like my friends and I, obviously we all love Harry Potter, so that started as an in-person kind of thing for us, and it moved to online, to Instagram, where we share, you know, news about Harry Potter and stuff that we see on our feed with each other. So, you know, that's also a big like that's why I this reading kind of came up for me, and you stole
Hmm.
it out from
Yeah,
under me before
sorry.
I could say no, no, no,
Damn.
it's okay. It's great that we're on the same wavelength with that.
The other one I wanted to bring up was the data visualization articles
Oh.
because I don't know how much of a thing this would be in the Harry Potter community, but sports obviously rely very, 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 very heavily on statistics and
Hmm.
some of the great ways that fans have pioneered, online, and then have actually in turn inspired like television
Wow.
into improving their graphic game is by creating their own graphics. So where this is an account called Umpire Scorecards. If you know anything about sports, the officiating is not always very good.
No.
And especially in baseball, people were like, I want to find out a way to, you know, judge like how an umpire is doing statistically. Everything else in sports is judged on statistics.
Yeah.
So for every game, this account produces an umpire scorecard. Every person produces a, and I actually really wish that we had done data visualization now because I would have absolutely used this. Because it's very clear to, I don't know how well you can see it on the screen share, but
Well enough.
lists missed calls, overall umpire accuracy, overall consistency, who the calls favored more. In this case, it was 0.41 runs to the New York Mets. Didn't really matter, but it happened. Relative accuracy, comparing how well the umpires like how well this umpire did compared to the average umpire calls in the game. This umpire actually did really good, 2.1% above expected. 3.3 more average, 3.3 more correct calls than average umpire. So that was
Wow.
great. A graphic here showing all missed calls, including a strike zone. Kind of this is what the strike zone, the rectangle should look like. The red, I believe, is what the umpire strike zone was generally based on how they were calling strikes and balls that night, and you can see why. Like the green dots here are like call balls that should have been called strikes. So you can see kind of like where an umpire is a little weaker. And there's 12. And then impactful missed calls, the three most impactful missed calls of the game, um, organized by impact on the game. I think this one there was a tie
Hmm.
overall because it's all statistically derived. So data visualization plays. Wow, that was horribly pronounced. Data visualization plays a huge part in the baseball Twitter community, and that's just one example. There's so many more, but I don't want to like extend this video too much. I could go on and on about this forever, but it's a huge part, and I found that really
That, you
I,
know,
I definitely wanted to mention that, comparing it to what we've decided is good data visualization based on some
no,
of our readings.
I'm glad that you mentioned it because I had seen this. Um, it's a like a graph almost of all the Goodread ratings of each
Uh-huh.
book based on, so it's Goodread and IMDb ratings of each book and film, so it compares the movie with the book, which is
Hmm.
really cool. So you have the film on the right side, you know, and then the movie on the or the book on the left. So I thought that was really cool, and I wasn't going to bring it up because it's just the one example. I could not find any more like this. This is literally the only one on Instagram
Wow.
that I could find like this. Um, and it's kind of interesting to me, but I'm glad that you brought up the data visualization stuff because this is like literally the only example I could find
Yeah.
in this community.
And that makes sense because
It's
the Harry
not
Potter community seems to be
based
much
on
more
that.
artistically based, and not that that doesn't
Yes.
exist in baseball, but like
Yes.
statistics are
Which
literally
is
everything
they're
to
both it's a different
teams.
set of, you know,
Right.
creative avenues
Which is
for
why I'm
those
glad that they were
communities.
the sources of this podcast. So I want to finish
Yeah.
out with something positive. I feel like we've
Okay.
done some positives, some negatives, but like a kind of an overall judgment. Where does our virtual community fall here? Is this ultimately
Mm.
something that we feel is good, something that we can kind of use as inspiration for a classroom? Or is this more of a lesson of what not to do in a virtual community? I know my answer. Do you know yours? Because if
I
you need a
do.
second to think about it, I can.
No,
Okay,
I
go.
do. I
Why don't you
do.
go first?
This is not a good example of this community.
No.
No. I knew that from the beginning. I knew that from the beginning because I think it could be good, but I think it's more of an example of what not to do, especially based on all the comments that I saw, comments that I have received in the past. Instagram is one of the social medias I would never recommend for any community.
Yeah.
Honestly, in my opinion, it's a very toxic platform, which is why I chose to look at it because I kind of had the feeling. TikTok is one of those communities I would say is a little more, it fits better into that mold of a good example, um, for certain reasons and, not for other reasons, but Instagram, no. All across the board is a huge, big red no for me. I think there's good people. I think there's good intentions. I think there are some niches that are really good, but they're niches, they're small. I think the overall community is just very toxic and not it.
Yeah. I'm a little more torn on mine.
Okay.
Just because I have been lucky, I've had plenty of positive interactions. And I
Yeah.
think especially in recent times, there has been a trend more towards positivity in sports communities. I think people are getting a little tired of it. So like I have a few examples of like some of the
Mm.
roles that I wanted to mention where there was in the Malik and Haydir reading, there's like the fandom roles. Um they talk about like there are fan sites, and I know I talked about it a lot. Fan sites, fan artists, gift makers, AU writers, um, not really alternate universe writers for there's not a lot of fan fiction in baseball. Um
Lots of it in Harry Potter. That's all it
yeah.
is.
Big
Yeah.
ones, archivers. Archiving is huge,
Yep.
like in baseball and social media, and like one of my favorite, like I know I talk mostly about Twitter, but like YouTube is huge for baseball archives and highlights. Like so like in that aspect, the baseball online community, awesome. And like for just funny things like the Mets won a game, call the ambulance, but not for me. Obviously edited Mr. Met into this meme.
Love it.
There's another one where DJ Stewart on the Mets, who has been having a very bad season, hit a home run, and people were stunned, and it was a big home run in that game.
Earthquake,
I was like,
solar
Solar
eclipse.
Eclipse is DJ Stewart home runs. What's next? And I was just like, I posted a GIF from
Oh,
Ghostbusters, dogs and cats living
that's
together, mass
hilarious.
hysteria. Like there's a lot of fun to be had on
This one's the same
baseball
way.
social media.
Yeah.
Um, but there's definitely a lot of examples of what not to do. Uh, I didn't mention it. There's this guy, Frank the Tank, just the most
Mm.
toxic sports fan on the planet. Of course, he's a Mets fan, and I would say I'm overall I my the Twitter one I'd say no, but the overall community I'd say yes. Is a good
Okay.
example. I think that's probably the case for a lot of fandom communities. That there will be good things you can take from them, but ultimately they
Yeah.
are very negative.
But I think
Um,
that's social media in general. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that the Twitter though, just because of the nature of how Twitter works, that it's like a minefield.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a minefield, and you're using a faulty metal detector. So sometimes you'll figure it out, and then sometimes you'll get sucked in or exploded or whatever.